Weddington and Waxhaw, North Carolina, two of the most popular areas in all of South Charlotte. Well, in this video, we're going to compare and contrast these two areas. So if you're looking to make a move to the South Charlotte area, hopefully this will be of use to you so you can make the best decision for you. So let's jump in and get started. What better place to start our overview of these two towns than the beginning? So let's talk about the history of Weddington and Waxhaw. Weddington really is a younger town dating back to the late 1900s when one of its settlers, Reuben Weddington, donated quite a bit of land to start both a school and a church. And as you can imagine, we're now here in Weddington. So covering about 18 square miles with a population of 14,000 residents. There's a large space here for single family homes, and Weddington, when it started, was farmland. There's a lot of areas around the greater Charlotte area. Farm and trades were very important, but that still holds true even today for Weddington, with the large single family homes with a very quiet suburban feel for Weddington. So as we'll compare Waxhaw, we have really a different trajectory and growth and use of the land. But before we jump in, if this is your first time to the channel, just real quickly want to invite you to like and subscribe to Living in South Charlotte so you'll be the first to know as we provide new videos all the time. I'm Steve Jarrell with the Longleaf Group, and I absolutely love helping people just like you that are interested in learning about the area. Whether it's you're considering making a move in the next 6 days or 6 months, please reach out below. Love to help you. We love helping every day. We love helping people just like you. So with all that said, let's jump back in. So as we compare Waxhaw, which was settled in the 1700s, quite a bit older, and Waxhaw was named after the Native American tribe, the Waxhaws. And Waxhaw has a deep history in especially during the colonial period, where a deep settlement in the area, the transportation was extremely important. Cotton production was very important in the Waxhaw area. So we saw quite a bit of settlement, and during that time, even the architecture in their downtown, which is still preserved today, you see that architecture of brick, historic, similar to Matthews in a way, where they both were very settlement towns, trains going through there, which is very important. But Waxhaw, which is only 12 square miles compared to Weddington, has 22,000 residents there. So the density is more dense in Waxhaw, more development going on there, as we'll talk about the real estate markets, differences in those two markets, which a lot of it has to do with the types of homes and obviously the density of the areas for those homes. So that's a little brief history of these two important Western Union County towns. The next two important items we're going to talk about in comparing these two towns are the location, the importance of the location, and what it's like to live in Weddington and Waxhaw. So let's talk about the location, where these actual towns are in conjunction with South Charlotte, and why it's important. So if you look at the location of Waxhaw and Weddington, although they're very close to each other, Weddington's just north of Waxhaw. You're literally driving through 16 Providence Road down into Waxhaw, but their proximity to amenities and things to do are similar in some cases, where Weddington, you really have the Waverly area, you have Arboretum, you have areas like that, or you can really pop over to Wesley Chapel. In Waxhaw, your location, you have the downtown area that you can walk to, Middle James Brewery or Waxhaw General Store. You've got the Waxhaw Park there you can walk to in the downtown area. Both of them are about 40 minutes south of the uptown area, although with Waxhaw being farther south, and it can take a little bit longer to get to the uptown area, obviously, than Weddington, which is closer to uptown, but very similar in geography in South Charlotte, but also the differences in their ability to get to amenities. So as an important side mark with living in Weddington, which I am a resident of Weddington, when you do want to go out to eat or some type of entertainment, as I mentioned earlier, Weddington doesn't have a downtown. It really doesn't have any commercial to speak of other than attached there to the town hall. There's the Weddington Corner shopping, it has the Harris Teeter and a little business center there, but that's the only real commercial in the Weddington area. So if you are going to eat or anything like that, you're either you're going to go to Wesley Chapel or Matthews or, like I mentioned earlier, Waverly to do anything. And obviously Waxhaw has access to their own downtown. And then similar to Weddington, there's all sorts of high-end and other shopping and dining areas that are either in Ballantyne or Marvin or within the Waxhaw area, but Weddington doesn't have that. For our next topic, which happens to be near and dear to my heart, which is the real estate market in Waxhaw and Weddington, we're going to jump inside. We're going to check it out at our command center at the computer so you can see what those markets look like.
Well, let's take a look at the real estate side of the Weddington and Waxhaw comparison. And before jumping into our overview of the real estate market, it's really important to discuss the differences in the development, especially the land development, when it comes to Weddington and Waxhaw. And the biggest difference that you're going to see, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, for Weddington, the density or the lot sizes are going to be, in general, going to be much larger than they are required in the Waxhaw area. As a minimum, the lot size for Weddington is going to be right at about an acre or more. And the goal is there to limit the development, the growth in Weddington. Obviously have bigger lot sizes and acreage, and that's had an effect on the amount of homes that are developed and the inventory available in Weddington. And that's obviously intentional to preserve the rural feel, nature, greenery of Weddington. And where Waxhaw is much more flexible on the development, allowing both single family homes as well as multi-family development, and more open density wise as far as the real estate side goes. So as we look at the trends going on in the Weddington and Waxhaw area as far as real estate, we're going to look over the past year, and with everything in mind I mentioned on the density, the real estate, zoning requirements for these two areas. The four key components we're going to talk about today are going to be the month's supply of inventory, which means if everything else were to stop new properties coming on the market, this is how much time it would take to sell all of the inventory or homes in Weddington and Waxhaw. So we'll have months of inventory. We'll look at the sales price trends for these areas, the days on market, as well as the amount of homes that are for sale total. So as we look at first the month's supply of inventory, and you can see just looking at the map here, there's a stark difference in where their starting points are. The first of 2023, January, to obviously now we're into late October of 2024, and they started different points, but they've ended right at about the same amount of supply of inventory of homes in the market. So while there are fewer in Weddington than Waxhaw, they both are right about that almost 2 months of inventory, which is extremely low amount of homes on the market. Not nearly as many as what we would consider a healthy market, which is anywhere from 4 to 6 months of availability of inventory, to have what may be considered not quite a buyer's market, not quite a seller's market. We're still very much in the seller's market because our demand is way higher than what our supply is. So looking at our next stat would be our sales prices in these areas, and looking at Weddington, which larger lots, typically on average larger homes, and we like to look at the median, which is the right in the middle, taking out the outliers of the lowest price versus the highest price that can really throw things off. So that the median for Weddington, the green here, we're at 1.29 million versus 715,000, which is a growth. Both of them are continuing to grow in appreciation. 7.6 for Weddington and a little over 10% for Waxhaw. So, and with Waxhaw, that includes like I mentioned, smaller homes, smaller lots. So that price per square foot for both of them are still extremely high, even for being such large footprints on their lots. So really positive from the growth side. Really difficult for first-time home buyers or anyone that's looking on the lower side. Obviously, these areas are going to be outside of the general range of buyers, but that's what these markets are. And even though they have high price points, because they're such desirable locations and homes, the days on market, which is the total time from the time they go on the market to going under contract, their days on market is still, even in a not as crazy of selling market as we saw obviously late 2020, 2021, halfway through 2022. We're still in these markets, still very much a seller's market. If they're priced right, they go really fast. But as a median for Weddington, only 14 days on the market. And then obviously Waxhaw even less than that. 6 days on market is what that median is. Just for a comparison, the average, you're at 32 days for Weddington and you're at 22 days for Waxhaw, which both of those are a drop in what they have previously been, which is just a sign of the cooling of the market and the growth. If you look at other areas in the greater Charlotte area, that is actually quite a bit higher amount of days on the market than what we're seeing in these areas. So that's a general overview of the real estate market in these two areas. Very similar in a lot of ways, location wise, but the biggest thing is the types of lots and the zoning requirements. Very different mindsets, that the way Weddington's set up versus Waxhaw, with the ability to have commercial mixed use, and Weddington at this point has no desire to step outside of the rural, larger lots, lower density development. The next thing let's talk about the schools, which is another huge factor when we look at these high prices. The schools play a huge role in the demand for homes, regardless of where they are, but especially Weddington and Waxhaw. One of the biggest drivers to the people looking for homes in these areas are the absolute high quality homes that they have in their school, that are zoned for Weddington, and a large percentage of Waxhaw as well. So we're going to talk about that coming up right next. Well, let's now take a look at, I'll move over here and get myself a little bigger, the always important schools that are zoned for both Weddington and Waxhaw, and quality of schools that draw so many people to the Western Union County area, especially Waxhaw, Weddington, as well as even Marvin. But these two areas, we're first going to start off with Weddington to see how the schools rank. I like to use, as we're here, greatschools.org, that pulls in a variety of stats to come up with their rankings. And as we look at for Weddington, the three main schools are aptly named Weddington Elementary, Weddington Middle School, Weddington High School, all ranked extremely high according to greatschools.org. If they're not a 9 out of 10, they're a 10 out of 10. Another school that's within the Weddington School District is Antioch Elementary, which is also ranked 10 out of 10. But what's really nice with Weddington and the schools themselves, both academically as well as the sports, the entire school from a ranking is off the charts. The sports teams, whether it's football, soccer, all of baseball, all of the sports are always in the state rankings, and their football team is always highly rated, and the fan base here supports Weddington extremely well. So it's a great place to, especially if your student is strong in the sport area as well as the athletics as well as scholastically, it's a great area and a huge demand and draw. From Waxhaw, as we look at it, that's also very strong in the academically as well. And as we look at the great schools, you can see why. As we look at Waxhaw, the schools are also very highly rated. Since you have a higher density area, there's more schools that are needed to cover the population in Waxhaw. From elementary school, Kensington Elementary, Waxhaw Elementary, you've got Western Union Elementary School, all of those I can see between 7 and 10. The two high schools, and this is something I get asked about quite a bit, from what zoning is required. It's important to take note if it is. There's Cuthbertson High School, which there are some subdivisions like Millbridge, for example, where part of the community will go to Cuthbertson High School, which is a newer high school, and then the other part will go to maybe zone for Parkwood. Not on this list, but let's pull it up. It's also well respected, and it's just an older school. I'm gonna pull it up to see the school here, but it's rated currently, let's close this, a 7 out of 10 overall, great student progress. But you can see when you're comparing those two based on the rankings, the Cuthbertson's just rated higher. But there is a very recent push for a bond that's going to put in millions of dollars into the updating and upgrading of the Parkwood High School. Is obviously going to add quite a bit of updates, and I'm sure it's going to affect where they're rated after all of that money is put into Parkwood as well. But looking at the schools and the quality, it's just important to look and get the overall picture of where you may be zoned for in Waxhaw. Where Weddington, it's very clear. Weddington High School is the high school if you're in the Weddington area. But even then, you still need to make sure what that zoning is, where professional and you yourself can also see where the zoning outline is for your home. So needless to say, schools are obviously very important and a huge driver for both Weddington and Waxhaw, the great schools here in the Western Union County area.
We are here at the Dogwood Park in the Wesley Chapel, Weddington area, and without a doubt, one of the most important things for anybody moving to a new area is what are the outdoor activities, the park, the recreation. And comparing Weddington and Waxhaw, they both have a ton of access to things to do outside. Here at the Dogwood Park, there are just a lot of area to run around, obviously for children, families. In Weddington, you also have the Weddington Optimist Park, which is really a lot of sport leagues, soccer fields, football fields. A lot of the local athletics take place at the Optimist Park. And then Waxhaw has, and they are both in very close proximity, so access to both of them are easy to get to. But Weddington, or Waxhaw in particular, has their own Waxhaw Downtown Park, David Barnes Park. You have the Thread Trail that goes directly through the Waxhaw area, and just a lot of other outdoor things in the Waxhaw area. So more going on in Waxhaw park-wise, but both of the Western Union County area towns of Waxhaw and Weddington have access to just a ton of activities. Well, thank you for joining us on our overview of the Waxhaw and Weddington areas here in South Charlotte. Hope you learned a whole lot. If there are any questions at all, definitely reach out. All of our information is below. Absolutely love to help you in any way in your journey to the South Charlotte area. I'm Steve Jarrell with the Longleaf Group here in South Charlotte. So I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, we will see you then.